Welcome back to Scholastically Natalie, where we talk about writing, books, and, in this case, D&D. If you hear any strange noises in the background, my computer is currently really struggling with moving some of my pictures from my downloads to my pictures file. I don't know why it takes so long with this computer, but yeah, it really doesn't like moving things. So, today I wanted to talk about how I kind of prepped for the current campaign that I'm running and how I'm prepping for sessions and stuff like that. So if you're one of my players, go away or pretend you haven't heard this. So I'm using a world that I built for the very first campaign that I ran, and with one slight difference. I've made this an alternate universe because my original party had the choice between siding with the demons or the gods, and they chose the gods. I was quite disappointed because I really wanted them to choose the demons. Because when the demons were chosen, all the continents would split apart and all the oceans would turn to sand. Cue big inspo from Sands of Destruction, which was one of the first animes I watched, and that was always just such a mood. Anyways, then when I was running a campaign in the summer, I decided to play with that alternate universe in mind, where when they were given that choice, the party actually chose the demons. And now I'm continuing that trend with this party. And it's incredibly fun because a lot of the players are from my very first campaign, and so they're slowly realizing that all the problems I presented them with didn't get solved and have in fact become worse. Something I'm sure they weren't expecting. But yet I can still use my favorite NPC that all of them hate. Dawn. Anyway, so I'd like to show you what I kind of sent to them as a kind of intro. So, this is something I edited from when I first passed it out for the AU to now what it is this. The world has broken, split apart by something that the demons and devils, your rulers, call the Reconstruction. Countries have fallen, continents destroyed, and all the oceans have turned to sand. All live on islands, some populated by increasingly strange creatures that the world had never seen before the Reconstruction. The sands can be traversed by ships, produced by what little remains of the dwarven country Khazadar. These ships, made from metal and powered by magical lodestones, manage to remain undamaged by the shifting sands, though some have sunk to the bottom after encountering one of the many dangers held within the oceans. Airships have been spotted, soaring among the clouds, though few know where they are created or how to obtain one. They are a luxury that few can afford, most resorting to stealing them from unfortunate passengers and crew. The great demon lord Zareth rules from Ascension, the island city that contains a vast majority of the high-ranking demons. It is a place that few mortals return from or even dare to venture. You know that the gods exist. The only people that have contact with the divine now are those sworn to their service. The servants of the old gods are scarcely seen, rewards posted for those that can be found, dead or alive. There have been no signs of the dragons, beings created by the gods themselves, and the sightings of dragonborns, the blessed ones, have dwindled to almost nothing. They are in high demand, captured alive, to be delivered to the great demon lord himself. And that is definitely... I had a lot of fun writing that one up. And so I'd also like to show you some things that we've homebrewed up just to have a little bit of fun with and to augment some bad stats. So we'll start with the emotional support bird named Took, who was made because my poor friend could only get a 16 on his con even with racial bonuses, and they were starting at level 5 and he was a barbarian. So I was like, yeah, okay, we can do this. So I made Took, who is a magical white cockatoo with a pink crest, because I love birds and because he was a pirate. And I made him 1.5 feet tall because he's a special bird. I gave him an AC of 15 and HP of 50 and walking speed of 10 feet, which I do realize, if you're going to get factual about burbs with me, that is slow for a bird. They can move frighteningly fast on their little feet. And he has a flying speed of 60, mostly because Took is not intended to be added to fights. He just kind of flies overhead. And I gave him 2 abilities. His first one is Scream, where he shrieks and imbues his owner and 5 other people with a sense of purpose and drive, where they gain advantage on saving throws. And then he has Love, where Took gives his owner a kiss, and his presence is loving and fills you with strength of will. Your base constitution is raised by 2 as long as Took is with you at the start of the day, which is pretty much always. He just managed to befriend a magical cockatoo. And then we have a thunder rifle, because my friend is incredibly obsessed with Thunderous Smite. And she's playing a gunslinger this time, so I decided to give her what is essentially Booming Blade in a shotgun form. We did figure out the spacings of all the weapons, but now I can't remember them because I have no brains for numbers. But I called it Thundershot. The range is 2060 for just a shotgun. And then I have, basically it's just Booming Blade, but you can shoot it further, so that's the part where I say you load a cartridge into the rifle, pull the hammer back on fire, and then choose a target with range, because usually Booming Blade is a melee spell. So I just gave her a slightly better Booming Blade, which she's used to great effect in the battles I've had them fight with zombies. And so then, lastly, I wanted to show you guys how I've been designing individual gods. I kind of have a base profile for the main gods that I came up with, because they're based off of, like, the Greek pantheon, except I kind of changed around who was what. But my players sometimes are like, hey, I should be serving a god. And I'm like, well, what are you feeling? Recently we had a fun one where one of my players was like, yo, I want to serve a god, but I don't want to like them, and I might want to betray them. And I'm like, sweet, you can have the goddess of spite because she sucks. Mostly in that she's just incredibly petty. I'm not going to show you that stat, because if you are a player that's playing with me, I like the goddess of spite, but I also want her to be a secret. So instead we're going for the god of vengeance and sky and the goddess of war. Neither of them are currently in use for any of my players. If you are a player watching this who hates Dawn, sorry. So the god of vengeance and sky is originally who I was just having be the god of the sky, but then I had more fun with him. And so this is how I make my profile for them, that I then share with my players so that they have the knowledge of how to work with their god. So I just give the title and then what gods they're in a relationship with, or like the relationship of them. He is actively dating the god of the sun, but in other cases I'll put like which category they belong to. Like in some cases, because the god of the sky is a big deal, so he's part of like the main group, but there's a god of navigating, he would go under the god of the sky because he uses the stars. It's stuff like that. So I think this is a main focus on vengeance. So he believes that doing whatever you have to for vengeance is acceptable. This includes lying, stealing, whatever is permissible, as long as it is for your end goal. The best way to honor your god is to treasure your vengeance and wield it as a blade. He frowns upon those who abandon their vengeance and will abandon them in return. He can accept the change of target with new information, but he will never accept forgiveness. And then the part that I do for all of them is I give them 3 ways to call upon their favor. So you either successfully make a move towards your goal of vengeance, you sacrifice a meaningful item, or you call his name and ask for the assistance or blessing that you want, in which you then have to roll a d10 to see how successful you are. And then this is a note I leave on all of them. If a dedicated follower accomplishes something he approves of, he might bless them or one of their belongings. And then I give you a kind of breakdown of who feels about what. So we have his followers are generally welcomed, but viewed with suspicion, as most people try to forget about the side of Ronim that calls for blood. Most people prefer to worship him as the god of the sky. Ronim is generally depicted with blue skin, white hair, and grey-blue eyes. His symbol is... Recently, I've been looking for images that fit my taste, like copyright-free ones. This one I actually drew, and it's not the best, but it exists. And then his followers are expected to display his symbol, though some may hide it when nearing their target, as it might make them suspicious. I always tell them if their god will be pissed if they hide their symbol or not, because some want it open, and then others who are more sneaky are like, we understand if you don't want to display it. And then I also tell you the colors he mostly dresses in, so that some people have something to base their palette off of. So he's commonly dressed in gold, white, and blues. And I did something similar with the goddess of war, who's Amora, who is deeply tied with the goddess of nature, Dawn. She tends to favor fighters and berserkers, especially mercenaries, but will occasionally favor politicians who fuel wars. Yes, that is the second thing I meant to say. Depending on how I'm feeling, I might tell you how he feels about how they feel about your actions, or who they favor in ways to, like, bless. The best way to honor your goddess is to spill blood in her name. She adores conquests and long-lasting wars, especially those involving multiple sides. To her, and therefore her followers, the best death is on a battlefield. If you lose your will to fight, don't bother returning to her temple, and cowards need not even show their face. I like Amora. To call upon her favor, spilling blood in her name, sacrificing a weapon to her, and then, of course, the last one, which is the same for all of them, roll a d10. So her depiction is that because she is a bloodthirsty and vicious goddess, her followers are distrusted but sought after for their prowess in battle. Had a lot of fun with this one because one of my players was a paladin of hers, so he's pretty much fighting with everyone. He channeled it, which was interesting, into accepting challenges and having to do challenges. And then Amora is often depicted with blood-colored skin, white hair, and grey eyes, often reaching 7 feet in height. Her followers are expected to carry her symbol, and it is up to the believer as to whether it is displayed or not. Many display it in the hopes of inviting a good fight, while others prefer to wait and study a situation before displaying it, or even purposefully hiding it. And to base your palette off of, it's black, white, deep red, and grey. It took me a while when I was, like, creating gods and goddesses to realize that, like, they're not people, and therefore they don't need to be restricted to certain, skin colors. So they can be any color. And of course, because they're gods, they can transform into whatever they like. So I put them commonly depicted because throughout the years I'm sure they've changed their style or aesthetic, and they might even appear to you in a different way. I think the next thing I'm going to include on my deity profiles, essentially, is like their favorite animals, or like what they could appear to you as, sort of like secondary or tertiary things, because as somebody who is a dedicated follower, of course people would know that. It's just a lot of stuff that I've been thinking about and trying to move forward with. I love world building and trying to figure out how things work, and right now I'm having a lot of fun getting to mess with my players by making situations like 10 times worse. Although I do need to prep for our next incoming session. I have already made some props that hopefully they will be, at the very least, if not interested in, just kind of I'll take some mild excitement, or even just interest in general. I feel very extra making them. But I think I do need to make a third set. I'm making journal pages. I do think I need to make a third set just to round out what I'm offering, and to try to help me jog more memories of my old lore, because some things I straight up forgot about until I was thinking about it on the car ride home, and I was like, oh no. But I don't know, I love figuring out things, and currently my players are probably going to level up next session, depending on whether we play or not, because they just beat up a ton of undead. And so I think the next quandary they're gonna have is deciding whether to hand over their prisoner to the people that asked for him or not, because people that want him definitely don't want him for a good purpose. So I'm interested in that dilemma, so I've got to prep some, what is the word? I've forgotten the word. Fighting stats. There we go. I have to prep some stats for whichever end they choose, because if they fight it, I have to prep, of course, fighter stats, and if they choose that way, I've got to prep stats for their next quest. I gave them a lot of different quest options in the beginning to have them all be taking, like, bounties, and they moved through, I think, 3 in the last session, so I'm excited to see if they try to reach the other ones. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of rant, I guess. Messy explanation about how I think about D&D. I definitely like a lot of the little details, although not as much as my one friend. He keeps crying about how badly my maps are drawn. And so I will see you guys in the next one. I hope this was at least mildly entertaining for you. Thanks for watching. Scholastically Natalie is out.